Welcome to our session. This is our first sort of introductory workshop to Brightspace and Zoom. Just so people know, this is sort of a combination workshop of both our Zoom workshop and our Brightspace workshop. So we kind of want to cover a general topic of both these subjects, but obviously just because of the time, we can't cover anything. We can't cover everything. So if you do ever want more information, a refresher, or anything like that, we are running more workshops this week and next week. Specifically, we are running another workshop specifically on Zoom and specifically on Brightspace. So I do highly recommend checking that out if you do end up having any more questions of either one of these subjects. But what we're going to start with for the session is we're going to first start with Zoom, and then we are going to talk about Brightspace in the later half of the session. First thing we're going to cover is just getting our network account info. For anyone who doesn't know, your network account info is your main Algonquin College account. This is going to be your email. This is going to get you into Brightspace. This is going to get you into the Wi-Fi, the bookstore, your software page. Pretty much if Algonquin College asks you for an account, it's probably this account. So really important one to get. To find this account, we're going to want to go to Access. So to find Access, we're going to go to the Algonquin College website. We're going to go to the very top. We're going to click on the Current Student tab. And on that page, if we just scroll down a bit, we should see a button that just says Access. Should be a big green button. Click on that button and you will be brought to a page, a sign-in page very similar to this one, just to the right here. You're going to want to log in with your student number. And if it's your first time logging into Access, your password is going to be your date of birth in this format, the day, month, year, with the little dashes in between, just like that. You should be prompted to make a new password once you're in, which I highly recommend doing to just have a kind of more secure password. Any problems getting into Access, I do recommend trying the forgot your password method first. And if that doesn't work, I do recommend contacting ITS or going to the ITS drop-in session. If we get into Access, what we are looking for is our network account info. We should look on the left-hand tab where it just says account, and you're looking for what we just have circled right here called network account info. And if you click on this tab, we will see our user ID and our initial password right here. So this is our email as well. So if you look to the left, this user ID with @algonquinlive.com is also your email. And just this base information will get you into Brightspace as well. A key thing I always like to mention at this point is that this is one big account. It's all connected. So if you do change your password for any individual thing, so if you have changed your password for your school email, you actually have changed your password for Brightspace as well. It's always connected. So do keep that in mind if you do ever change your password for this account. Besides that, with our email and with our network account info, we're going to start with talking about Zoom. First off, what is Zoom? Why is it useful? Why do we want to learn it? So Zoom, as I think most people know, is what we're using right now. It's a video conferencing tool for meetings, presentations, classes, and it's kind of the main one. When we all had to start meeting online, this is the tool that won. It's most businesses are using it, most classes are using it, most schools are using it, and it's what we're using. It's what we're going to have most of our classes in. And if you would like to meet with students outside of class, it is also probably going to be the easiest method to do that as well. What we're going to cover today, specifically for the Zoom half of this workshop, is we're first going to cover a bit of Zoom etiquette, so how to behave in a Zoom call. We're going to talk about how to create a Zoom account with the main purpose of having your own Zoom account is going to be making your own meetings for meeting outside of class. Then we're going to talk about some recommended security settings for that account to make it safer. Then how to schedule your own meetings and all these settings that have to do with meeting creation. Then a bit of in-meeting controls, mainly the two of being how to do screen sharing and some kind of tips and tricks of that. And lastly, how to record your meeting and access that recording after. So first thing we're going to talk about is just a bit of Zoom etiquette. So first one we always like to mention is just to be very kind of aware of your microphone. Just to mention right away, I do see a raised hand. Just to repeat it, just for how big this session is, we do recommend putting your questions in the Q&A section. You should find that in the Zoom bar. And so if you do have any questions, please put them there just to make it kind of easier for us all here. Sorry, first point is to just kind of be aware of your microphone. What we do kind of recommend practicing is kind of have the default state of your microphone to have it muted. And when you would like to talk, then unmute yourself. So even if you're not saying anything, it's just kind of good practice to keep yourself muted. That's kind of one thing you might find pretty quickly in Zoom, that it's kind of surprising how much noise you can make, even if you're not talking, breathing, background noise, shuffling around. If you have a big call of people and 5 of them have their mic unmuted, you're probably going to notice even if they're not talking. So highly recommend having your mic muted. And then just when it's your time to talk, you just unmute yourself temporarily. To do all this, just so people know, we are currently in a webinar, which is specifically kind of made for presentation. So it's not your kind of normal meeting. So some of these settings I might talk about in a meeting may not be here, but normally in a Zoom call, you would have a mute and unmute button on the left side of your Zoom bar, and that's where you'd kind of control your microphone from there. We also recommend using a headset or earbuds. Doesn't have to be as intense as mine, but it does just help eliminate on more noise. If you're living with anyone, they'll definitely appreciate it. And it does kind of help prevent any sort of feedback of any sort of audio coming back into the microphone, into the Zoom call. We also recommend kind of dressing appropriately. You know, if you're going to school or work, we do recommend kind of dressing as if you're going to that in person. Like we know we're all at home and we can get quite comfortable, but it's kind of a good practice to kind of remain professional. And if you ever are on camera, you just want to be aware of it. In most cases, you will be able to. You can usually see yourself if you're on camera, so I can see myself in the top right, and I'm kind of aware that my camera is on. We always recommend having a tidy background, almost more important than tidy. I always say have just a not distracting looking background. So you don't want a bunch of weird things in the background, or like people just going back and forth. So you really want to find yourself kind of a neutral corner that's not going to be distracting to anyone. If that is challenging for you, there is the option to use a virtual background, which is pretty much a sort of keyed out computer generated background that kind of just puts this fake kind of background behind you. Quite a cool option if that is challenging for you to find a kind of neutral spot. We recommend using your full kind of real name when joining classes or other sort of Algonquin stuff. I think we're kind of used to being kind of anonymous on the internet, but this isn't really the case. We're joining our classes as us, our other students, and also our other students and our instructors. They want to know who we are, and also this will become a little more clear as we talk about meetings. You might find yourself having a hard time joining calls if people don't know who you are, because if they don't know who you are, they might not let you in the call, and that'll become a little more clear as we go through the workshop. Lastly, more of a heads up than a tip, is that a lot of your instructors are going to want you to have your camera on during class. They're used to teaching a classroom full of people. They're used to seeing people. They just find it uncomfortable to kind of teach to no one. So just be prepared during this week that if you join classes, you might be asked to have your camera on, and you might be asked to keep it on. that's our bit on Zoom etiquette. The next thing we're going to talk about is actually making a Zoom account. Don't feel pressure to make this right now. If you want to follow along with the workshop, like I said before, we will be posting resources at the end to go over this. So it's whatever is going to be easier for people to learn. We do recommend signing up for the Zoom account with your school email. It's not mandatory. If you already have one made with your personal email, feel free to use that. It shouldn't be a problem. We do recommend using your school email just because it is kind of overall easier to connect with people, and you're going to find it's really easy to find other students' school email. So by default, it'll be easier to invite people to other calls. But again, just to repeat that, it's recommended, it's not required. But to join Zoom, to make our account, there's no special Algonquin way to do it. We're just going to go to the Zoom website and sign up there. Once you're on the website, you should find some sort of sign up tab. Either will be kind of right in your face, just kind of this example we have in the top right, or it's going to be up on the top right as well. It just should be this orange button saying something like this: sign up, it's free. We're going to put our email in here. Once we put our email here and click sign up, it's free, we're just going to get an email from Zoom to kind of continue the sign up process. So we're going to go to whatever email we signed up with, find an email from Zoom. It will have a link in that email asking us just for a bit more info. It should bring you to this page we have in our bottom right example, asking for a first name and last name. And again, I recommend using your full first name and your full last name. And then it just wants a decently secure password. It will tell you exactly what it needs, kind of what kind of perimeters it needs for this account. And that's pretty much it. It asks you after that, do you want to add any contacts? If you know anyone, feel free to. If not, you can just press skip for now. And lastly, it'll ask you, do you want to open up a practice Zoom call? If you're on your own, it's definitely good practice. If not, that's it, and your account is now created. It's something I do recommend just getting out of the way one day, because just in case you ever have to do a meeting on the fly, and it doesn't take very long. The next thing we're going to talk about is some recommended security settings for this account. And again, if you don't have your account created right now, don't worry about it. We're going to post this information later in the, we're going to post the information later so you can add these settings in your own time. Just for this step in the workshop, I'm going to go into my Zoom profile because it's a little easier to follow along. So I just have it open right here. I'm on the Zoom website. If I'm not signed in yet, I'll just have to sign in up here with the Zoom account I've created, but I am signed in, so it just says my account. Sorry, I'm just going to drink some water. So this is our Zoom account here. We can do quite a bit from this profile. The main spot we're going to be looking at right now is this kind of left-hand tab here. So we're going to find a lot of our important Zoom stuff, with the first one being settings. What we're doing here is just turning off and on a couple recommended settings for your call, just basically to make your calls safer. So first one should be near the top, just called waiting room. What this is it adds a it adds a waiting room to your call. So if anyone joins your call early, they get put there first, and then you, the host, get alerted anytime someone tries to join your call, and you'll see this all under your participants tab. Then you pretty much get to admit them or decline them going into your call. Highly recommend having this on, and you'll see it's on if it's blue like this and little circles to the right. Highly recommend having this on. It's a really good security setting. No one's getting in your call unless you say so. You're in complete control of who enters your call and who isn't allowed. This is also a main reason we recommend using your full real name, because that's pretty much the only information whoever is hosting your call is going to see. And if they don't recognize your name because it's not your name, they may not let you in. So really useful setting. It really helps you kind of control the call. Besides that, just scroll a bit lower and we do have this require a passcode option. Pretty much just as it sounds, it's just an extra layer of security. It requires a password as well as the Zoom join code. So that's just something you're going to want to make sure that people know. So we do recommend having it on. This, again, just a way to make your calls a little more secure. We're just looking for 2 more settings. We are currently in the security tab up here. You'll see there, and you'll see it's kind of glowing, kind of blue like that because we're under that tab. Our next settings we're going to find under schedule meeting. Click on this guy and we'll kind of shoot us ahead down to the schedule meeting tab. And we are looking for, if we just scroll a little bit down, for this setting, allow participants to join before host. What this setting is that for Zoom in general, the call doesn't really exist until the host starts it. So there's nothing really to be in until the host is there. With this on, that's no longer the case. And anyone who has the Zoom join code link can start the meeting without them. This definitely can be useful if it's a small group, you're not really presenting anything, you're just making the meeting because you have a Zoom account, anything like that. We generally recommend having it off, and you'll know it's off. It's great if it's gray like this. We generally recommend having it off for 2 reasons. One, the call is definitely overall safer with you, the host, there, because you can mute people, kick people, all that kind of stuff. Secondly, this just clashes with waiting room. So if you have this on and you have waiting room on, it just doesn't work, because if you think about it, if you have waiting room on and they join before you, they just kind of snuck by the waiting room because no one was there to kind of man it and let people in. So this setting just doesn't work if you have waiting room on. If you ever want this setting on for just a individual meeting, we can turn this setting individually on for a particular meeting, and also turn waiting room off again for that particular meeting when we actually make a meeting. And we'll go back into that later when we talk about actually scheduling our meetings. Lastly, for our settings is our enable personal meeting ID. What this is that with this on, you would have a pretty much an ID for your meeting that wouldn't change. It would always be the same ID, and anyone who has that ID would be able to join that kind of permanent kind of call. We recommend having this off just because we're going to be meeting with a lot of different people throughout our school years. And if our meeting ID doesn't change, that just means if someone had access to our meeting before, they kind of permanently have access to this room for as long as they want, as long as they remember that code. So we do highly recommend having this off, and that will give you a random new meeting ID for every meeting you make, which is going to be much safer because only people who have the join code for that one will be able to join. That's it for settings. There's a tons of anything's bugging you about Zoom, you can probably change it here. The next thing we're going to talk about is actually scheduling a meeting. To do that, first we're going to check out the meetings tab. So if we go back to the left where we found settings, we are going to now click on meetings up here. First off, you'll see all the meetings we have created already are here. So if you ever want to re-find any meeting you've created, you can see it here. Besides that, if we want to make a new meeting, we can just click on schedule a meeting. Now it is always up here as well, so we don't necessarily have to go to the meetings tab to do that. I just like to show this tab just to show off re-finding your meetings here. But we're going to click on schedule a meeting and kind of go through the important parts of this process. First off, we have our topic. This is kind of the Zoom's term for just the name of the meeting. So I recommend naming that whatever you think is appropriate for what you are meeting about. We have a description, so we can explain exactly what we're meeting about, but that's optional, so you don't have to. Then we have the actual scheduling. We can pick when this meeting is going to appear, so we can click on this little calendar and then pick on what day we want this meeting to take place. Then we have the time. So you pick the number first, and then you pick AM or PM. So this is when the meeting is actually going to happen. We have the duration, so how long this meeting is going to be. I think our student accounts are unfortunately going to be free accounts. So if you have more than 3 people, you are capped at a 45-minute duration. But if you do ever get a longer meeting, you can change that here. We have our time zone. Change that whatever's appropriate for you. I usually change it to Eastern time because that's where the college is in Ottawa. Then we have a couple other options here. We're just going to kind of focus on the main ones today. First off, we have the option to use a template, which is if you find yourself repicking the same settings every time, you can turn a meeting into a template, and then we'll kind of auto pick the same settings that meeting had. You just have to make a meeting first, and then turn that meeting into a template. And we'll go over that when we're done making this meeting. Then we have our password here. It's just going to auto-generate a numbered one for us, so we can type in one ourselves. We think that's going to be useful and kind of easier for people to remember. We have our waiting room here. So if you ever want to not have waiting room on for a meeting, we can turn it off here, and it's not going to affect our general settings. And so again, if you ever want to use the join before host option, you can turn it off here. We have our video option here, which is pertaining to the kind of initial state of everyone's web camera. If I have it off, everyone's going to join the meeting with their web camera off. And if I have it on, everyone joins with the web camera on. But it's all about the initial state. So if I have it as off, people can still click on start video on their Zoom bar to then start their web camera. So it's really only referring to the initial kind of joining state of everyone's web camera. So I generally always recommend having it start as off. I think it's much better for people to join the meeting, get situated, know they're good to go, and then turn on start their meeting. So everyone's kind of aware and everyone's kind of ready. So that's generally a recommendation to kind of have the setting start off. We then have audio. Both is the kind of the safe setting, but just to explain, computer audio is whatever audio device you have plugged into your computer, and telephone pretty much lets you call in kind of via a telephone number instead of joining kind of via the internet. If you think anyone's going to use this telephone option, make sure you have the right dial from. So it usually defaults to the States for me. So I changed it to Canada, but you would just add whatever you think is appropriate. Last couple of settings, we have our allow participants to join anytime. Different wording, but this is our join before host option. So if we want people to join without us, we can turn this on. Again, just make sure you have waiting room off if you want to use this setting. We have mute participants upon entry, which is going to be, which means anyone who joins the call starts with their mic muted, but they should be free to unmute themselves if they want to. So kind of similar to video, I actually do recommend usually having the setting on. Same idea, kind of starts everyone with their mic off, and when they're good to talk, they can unmute themselves kind of when they're ready. So I actually do generally recommend having this on. If you want to record your meeting from start to finish, we can save ourselves some time and click on automatically record meeting. It will start recording your meeting the second you start it, and stop recording the second you stop it. Lastly, for meeting creation, we have our alternative host option. I mentioned a couple times in this workshop that the host has a bit more control over the call. If you want someone else to have very similar amount of power like you would, for example, you're presenting with another student, you can set them as a alternative host. You just have to put in their username or their email that is attached to their Zoom account, and they will get sent a unique Zoom join code that lets them join as a co-host. So it can be quite useful. Besides that, that's it for our meeting. Once we're happy with it, we're going to click on save. It brings us to this kind of final page with all our options here. We can add this meeting to a calendar. We can refresh ourselves on the password, the meeting ID. The main thing we're getting from this page is this. This is our invite link. This is what we're going to send to people, message to people. We could put it in a calendar invite, whatever you want, whatever is easier for you, whatever is easier for them. But this is how people are going to join our call. If you want an even more sort of legit invitation, we can click on copy invitation just to the right of it. It'll give us this kind of whole blurb with pretty much anything you're going to need to join our meeting, our title, the time, the ID, the password, the phone number, anything like that. We can just click copy meeting invitation and just send that to people and they can join our call. Also, if we need to change anything about this meeting, we can go down here and click on edit and it'll reopen all those options we just went through. And if you liked this meeting and would see yourself reusing the same settings in the future, we can click on save as template and we can use this meeting as a template for future meetings. Now, with our meeting created, we're now ready to start our meeting. Now, starting a meeting is not very complicated. We do go over it just because the first time you start your meeting, it's going to be a little different. First off, we're going to start our meeting any way we want. We click start this meeting here. We can click on the link as long as we're logged into the right account. We can go back to meetings here, find our meeting there, click on start there. Doesn't matter how you do it as long as you're starting your meeting. Then, and let me go back to my slides for this step. Then the first time you host a call yourself, specifically when you're hosting, you will be asked to download the Zoom desktop app. Really small download, doesn't take long to install. And once it's installed, it's going to ask you one more time to sign in with your Zoom account. Now the Zoom app is definitely useful. It's kind of this is kind of what it looks like in my example. You can see your upcoming meetings here. You can start your meetings here. You can now schedule meetings from here. It's kind of personal preference if you want to use the Zoom app more than the website. But the main reason we're downloading this right now is we just physically need this app to be able to host our calls. So as long as you have it downloaded and you're logged into it, that's it. From now on, when you start your meeting, it will ask you, hey, is it okay if we open the Zoom app? You go, yes, we'll open the Zoom app. Sorry, headset being weird, should be fine now. Yep, it will ask you to open up the Zoom desktop app. You say yes, it will start the meeting, and that's it. Again, useful app. We just mainly need it to physically be able to host our calls. That's it for the kind of meeting creation part of the Zoom workshop. A couple of things we'll mention for Zoom, and then we'll move on to Brightspace. It's just a bit of important meeting controls, starting with screen sharing. Screen sharing, for anyone who doesn't know, is what I'm doing right now. I just have my slides open on a Google Chrome browser. And you also saw me kind of go to the Zoom website as well. So I'm just sharing with you guys a internet browser I have open on my computer, and you guys can kind of see it as if it was on your computer. So I'm just sharing whatever I see on my screen. Now, first off, for screen sharing, right away, only the hosts and co-hosts can share their screen at first, but they can change that and allow other people to share the screen as well. If you're in a situation where you are then able to share your screen, you're going to click on the green share screen button Again, might not be on your bar right now because we're in a webinar, but in a meeting it would be there. So you'd click on the screen share screen button and it would open up a tab very similar to this. Our first option for screen sharing is just labeled screen. And this is the simple kind of do all, whatever we see, they see. So if we have something open, our participants are going to see it. If we're on our desktop, they'll see it. If we're in our folders, they'll see it. Whatever we see, they see. Definitely can be useful. We do recommend doing screen sharing slightly differently, and that would be to share a individual app instead. To do this, we're going to have whatever we want to share open already, and it can be pretty much anything. It could be a PowerPoint file, a Word document, an internet browser, pretty much anything open your computer you can probably share. And if you have it open already and then click on share screen, you will see it here. So if we look right under screen, I do have a Google Chrome internet browser open right under it. And if I click on that guy instead of screen, it will share that internet browser. You'll see what I have open. You'll see my tabs. You'll see me move through my tabs, but that's it. You won't see anything else I have open, and you'll only see the one thing I share. And that is definitely how we recommend doing screen sharing. Much safer, and you're 100% aware of what people can see. You have a bit more control. Besides that, for screen sharing, we have the whiteboard option. Instead of sharing specific content, it's going to share a blank whiteboard that you can write on and draw on and kind of just use for collaboration. So if you ever want something just up on the screen to take notes, brainstorm, whatever, it's a really good option. And one of the cooler options about it too is that if your participants go to the top of their screen and click on view options, they can then click on the annotate option themselves and they'll be able to draw and write on the screens as well. So it's a really good tool for collaborating. Lastly, for the Zoom half of our workshop, we have recording our meetings. Similar to screen sharing, at first only the host and co-host can share their, only at first they can record their meetings, but they can allow others in the meeting as well to record it if they want. To do it, all we're going to do is click on the white record button on our Zoom bar, and we'll have two options: record on this computer and record to this cloud. Record to the computer records directly to your computer, and record to the cloud gives you an online link to watch on your Zoom account. Click on either one of these options and we will see that we are recording on the top left. And in general, if anyone is ever recording a session, you should see it up there. So it never really should be a mystery if something is being recorded. If people do want any more information on this kind of recording process, we do cover this a little more in our actual individual Zoom workshop. And again, that's kind of the bit for our first half of the Zoom kind of portion of our workshop. We'll post some resources at the end of the session, but if you need any more help with Zoom, we have guides, we have other workshops specifically on Zoom, we have recorded workshops. So we have this one recorded as well, which I think will get posted I think later in the week on the orientation site. We'll post that later. And we also have a student survival guide and computer coach. And this is all stuff we'll kind of talk about again at the end of the session. But besides that, we're going to move on to the second half of our workshop, which is Brightspace. So Brightspace is something we've always used, even before the online year. But before, it was kind of up to your instructor on how much they wanted to use it. Some instructors depend on it, some instructors use 0 of it. Now that we're going to a mainly online year, it's going to be way more common to use. More people are using Brightspace. I would be surprised if your courses don't use Brightspace. It will become pretty clear right away what courses use it, what courses don't. But this is in general going to be much more important to be aware of for this year. It's where you're going to find a lot of your course materials, content, anything you're supposed to check out for your course. And it's also where you're going to be dealing with a lot of your graded stuff, assignments, quizzes, all that kind of stuff should be dealt with as well. And we're going to kind of quickly go over what we need to know for Brightspace. First off, actually getting into Brightspace, we're going to go the exact same route we did to get into Access. We're going to go to the Algonquin College website. We're going to click on current students, and we should find a Brightspace button there. We just have to scroll down a little below on the page. And then when we get to the sign-in page, what we just need is our Algonquin College user ID and initial password. So same thing you use to get into your email and basically anything else Algonquin related. You just don't need the @algonquinlive.com at the end for Brightspace. Also keep in mind, if you did change your password for your email, you did change your password for Brightspace as well. It's always connected. Just to show off the path more, just to get a clearer look at this page, I'm going to go actually into Brightspace myself. So I'm going to go to the Algonquin College website. I'm going to click on current students on the top here. On this page, I'm going to scroll down a bit and you'll see right here, I got Brightspace. This is also where we find Access and also where we find our email. Click on Brightspace. I just have it logged in already because just to save time for the workshop, but also if you are logged into your email, usually it will log you in automatically again, because they're kind of the same account. So in a way, if you're logged into your email, you're pretty much logged into Brightspace. But this is our Brightspace home. We're going to kind of cover the basics here. We're not going to, as I mentioned before, we're not going to cover everything in Brightspace just for time. So if you do, and I'll repeat this later on, if you do need any more support for Brightspace, I do recommend checking out our individual Brightspace workshop as well. First off, most importantly for Brightspace is our courses, which we can find in two places. First option is just down here. If we scroll down, we can see all our courses, these nice sort of pictured icons down here. This is most likely where you're going to enter your courses. Click on any one of these pages and you'll go to the specific Brightspace page for that course, and we'll go into that in just a second. We can also find our courses up here. It's a drop-down menu with all of them as well. Most likely you're going to use the option below. I show this option just because this is always here. So if you're ever in a course and want to quickly swap to another course, you can click on this menu and just jump into another course right away instead of going back to the home. Besides that, we have our message alerts. Any messages through Brightspace you can find here. You can also send out a quick kind of email through Brightspace without kind of leaving the site. We have our subscription alerts, which has to do specifically with a type of assignment called discussion topics. We have our update alerts, so any sort of big announcement from Brightspace they want you to know, they'll post here. There's usually going to be an orange circle here letting you know something new is popping up. So I do recommend checking that out if you see that. We have our account here, any sort of profile account settings you want to change here, I recommend checking it out. You can also change how you receive notifications from Brightspace. So if you ever want to change how you receive emails from Brightspace or change what you get emailed about in Brightspace, you can check out this tab. And again, this tab we go over a little more in our individual Brightspace workshop. Then in our navigation bar up here, we have our tools tab, which just has our calendar in it. This is a calendar that gets automatically updated by what's going on in Brightspace. So if we have meetings on Brightspace, assignments due on Brightspace, quizzes, stuff like that, we should see it here. Mine's a little bare because I'm not a student, but you'll see this is kind of what it looks like, and it should be all color coded. If I click on the all calendars option here, I can see all my other courses. I can see what color they are. and you can also click on the individual course to only see the calendar of that one course. Now, one thing I always do like to mention about this calendar is that it's a really useful tool, though as I did mention, it's something that is automatically updated. So if something is on Brightspace, due through Brightspace, you're probably going to find it here. If something doesn't have a hand-in component, like say, for example, a presentation, or is due outside of Brightspace for some reason, you may not find it here unless your instructor has kind of made the effort to go in here and add it themselves. So what I kind of mean by that is that it's a really useful tool, really useful for reminders. Don't swear by it. If your calendar is ever looking a bit bare, always cross-check it with your course outline or course schedule to find out how accurate it is. So again, really useful tool. Always kind of make sure you're aware of the course outline as well, so you know how accurate this calendar is. Besides that, our navigation bar, we do have a Brightspace support tab. This brings us to, mainly I'll point out, this brings us to our Brightspace Essentials Brightspace course. So it's a really useful page to learn about Brightspace. You just first kind of need a basic idea how to use Brightspace, which we'll learn in this course, in this workshop. We then have our resources. It brings us to our first option is our online library for Algonquin College. And if anyone hasn't already, I highly recommend checking out the workshop on how to use the online library. Besides that, we have our book list, which is going to connect us to the Algonquin College bookstore called Connections. You just have to log in one more time with that user ID and password, same stuff for Brightspace, and it'll give us a list of all the books we need to buy and also a place to buy them from most likely from the Connections bookstore. We also have a software tab. If you have any software provided by the college for your course, you'll most likely find it here. Again, you just have to log in one more time with that user ID and password. Those are the main things I'll point out up here. One last thing I'll mention for this homepage is I do like to point out the event calendar. I always recommend keep an eye on it. Anything sort of educational, fun event we post, anything we're hosting, it should be up here. So I highly recommend keeping an eye on it. Just see what we provide. It should be all online to my knowledge, but that should be specified for each kind of event. Besides that, we're going to go into an actual course here. Just going to drink some water. So to get more information on the individual course, all we have to do is first click on the course we want to learn about. And I'm going to repeat this kind of throughout this section. Always keep in mind that when we click on one course, we are now specifically on this one course. So everything we're dealing with right now has to do with this business law course. So everything's changed. You'll see if we go down, our announcements are all down here specifically for this course. We have a calendar specifically for this course as well. And if we go up to the top, you'll see that our kind of navigation up bar up here has completely changed with new content. Again, specifically all pertaining to this one course, but though it all should look pretty similar. First, we're going to go into the content tab. Just as it sounds, again, that's just up here on our bar. Just as it sounds, it's the main content, course material, stuff we need to check out for a class, all here. The first place you're going to want to look at is the side tab here, kind of a table of contents of what's in our page. It may not be always the same wording, but you're probably going to have some sort of tab like getting started or course information to get you introduced to the course. So if I click on course information, you'll see my topics here change. We have a page on meeting our instructor. We have a course outline. We have a course schedule. So overall, just a tab to get us introduced and familiar for our course. Besides that, we're going to have something really similar to this week one week 2, week 3, all pertaining to what week of school we're going into. If I click on week 1, I'm pretty much going to see whatever is required for week 1, whatever was talked about on week 1, or whatever is assigned on week 1. So how we have an introduction to the course, we have a PowerPoint presentation. So they were kind of nice enough to post their lesson for the day. We have a video they want us to watch. We have a discussion topic, which is a type of assignment. We have a checklist. And again, we just have a normal assignment here and the instructions on how to do this assignment. Now, if you want to keep track of what's going on in this content tab, the easiest way would be to keep an eye on these numbers beside each tab here. You'll see beside week, I have a 6, and if I mouse over it, it will tell me 6 out of 8 topics remaining, meaning there are 6 topics here I have not looked at or completed, and I have completed 2. And you can see exactly what I've looked at or completed by this little check mark beside it. So I have looked at this presentation, and I have completed this assignment. Also, if you're just someone who likes to have a downloaded or physical copy of whatever you're working on, we should have this download button here and this print button here for whatever you prefer. Besides that, if you want an easier way to keep track of your assignments, so you'll see we have a discussion topic and an assignment here. You can generally find them on the week they're assigned. But if you want an easier way to keep track of your assignments, you're going to want to check out the activities tab. So we were just in content right now. Right in the middle is our activities tab. And pretty much if something is graded, you're probably going to find it here. So we can find out about our assignments in the assignment tab, and this is where we're going to hand in those assignments as well. We can do discussion topics, which is kind of more of a social kind of assignment. We can find out about our group projects, who's in our group project, and how to kind of hand in our group project. And we also can do our online quizzes here. Now, for the sake of time, we're not going to go through these all individually. So if people would like a more specific kind of dive into these tabs, I do recommend checking out our specific Getting Started with Brightspace workshop. If you ever want to keep track of how you're doing in a course, or you just kind of want to see what's coming up, you can check out the Grades tab. Should be up here on our navigation bar with not only just how you are doing in a course, but you can also just see what in total you'll have to do in this course. So I can look in this page and see I have 6 quizzes coming up, 4 discussions, 2 assignments. So it's a good way to kind of get a bird's eye view of what is required and what is going to be upcoming in your course. Lastly, for our workshop, but it's very important to know, is how to join our Zoom classes if we have scheduled Zoom classes, just like we are expected to be kind of in a physical class. And for this, we are going to be using something called the Zoom classroom. Now, some of your instructors may do this differently. Some instructors may not use Zoom, which is going to be very rare, I think. Some instructors may just email you the link to join their calls. Most of them are going to be using the Zoom classroom. And if that's what they're using, what you're going to do is, and I'm just going to go back to the home just to kind of repeat this process. What you're going to do is first join the class you would like to join the Zoom classroom of. So I know it's time for my, and I just think this is a good example. I know it's time for my sandbox course. So if that's the case, I'm going to first click on the course I would like to join. I'm going to go back to this navigation bar. So again, different course, but almost the same navigation bar. Still have our content tab, still have our activities tab. But for this step to join the Zoom classroom, I am going to click on tools. Should be right up here. Click on this guy, and it is your very last option called Zoom Classroom. Click on this, and it'll bring you to this unique Zoom page where you should find the links to join your calls. I'm just going to click on previous meetings just to show off what it looks like, but it should be in upcoming meetings. You'll see the topic here, you'll see when this class is starting, and this is where you're going to join those classes. Again, always like to stress that right now I am specifically looking at this Sandbox Courses Zoom classroom. If I want to join another class's Zoom classroom, I'd either go back to the home page or just click here to go to another course and go to the Zoom classroom there. And that is pretty much it for our workshop. If people do have any questions, we do have some time. If not, it's always a good time to post some of our resources. I don't know if you have that still copied, Christine, if you don't mind posting that into our chat right now. Basic resources of all this like resources to our student survival guide, help with access, email, Brightspace. We also have the link to join our drop-in ITS for the day. So ITS is doing a, I think 9 to 5 or 9 to 4 all day of a drop-in session. You can jump in to get help. So I highly recommend checking it out if there's any sort of assistance required for anything today. Besides that, that's pretty much the end of the session.